266, which includes several of these. So speaking first to my primary component of it regarding the Salem NICU that we're hoping to do. The opponents of that provision of the now larger bill spoke about concerns about outcomes, but you also heard from actual medical professionals in my district about the negative outcomes that are occurring without the NICU right now. It almost sounded like there were hardly any children being born at Lewis Scale, but we have nearly 1,000 children born there every year. That's why Senator Edwards, who represents Roanoke City, where the other hospital is, supports my bill, because it's an adjacent city to Salem. But just as you'll hear 5 miles, a lot of you know in Northern Virginia what 5 miles are like. Well, Electric Road's not unlike Northern Virginia. We've got so many stoplights there, and in that golden hour, you lose the golden hour if you have to transfer from Lewis Scale to Carilion. So there's very serious negative outcomes. I'd also like to highlight the nice map that that the opponents of the bill gave out. If you look in the whole western half of the state, there are only 2 top-level NICUs, one at Carilion and the other one at UVA. UVA does not even meet the number of birth standards that the opponents of my bill say should be required. So if we were to follow that approach, not even UVA would have their NICU, and I don't think anyone believes that that should be the case. So I would ask you to disregard this. It's not a real standard, but the one they suggested ought to be approached. I'd also point out, when you look at the whole western half of the state, you notice that the blue and pink on their map, those are the higher level NICUs. It's the blue's the mid-level and the pink's the high level. And if you look at everywhere else around the state, you'll notice that there are high-level NICUs and mid-level NICUs near them. We're the only part of the Commonwealth that doesn't get to have an immediate NICU, which is the approach that's deemed the best everywhere else. And so I hope it'll be the pleasure of the committee to support that specific provision of the larger bill. Also, speaking to the larger bill, I'd point out that so many of these bills that you see today that we're incorporating into the larger bill is what's been the top priority for several years now that we've been debating on why we wanted to see certificate of public need reform. And the folks that are opposed to this bill have opposed every approach to certificate of public need reform that we've tried in the Commonwealth. Sometimes we get a little support at the beginning, but by the time votes were coming, that support disappeared. And I think what we're led to today is trying to get those meaningful top priorities of reform. And one good thing about this approach is those of us that have concerns about certificate of public needs effect, and if it were changed significantly in rural areas, that no longer is a problem because we're approaching it by the specific jurisdictions that would be affected here. And I hope that it'll be the pleasure of the committee to support Senate Bill 266.